Joining me today, our very own Thom Fox, who works with Repurpose It. Tom's role as an educator, community liaison, career that spans across grassroots education, council collaboration, and strategic outreach. Thom brings insights into how sustainability education can drive behaviour change from early learning all the way through to adult training. Thom, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Rod.
Also got a pleasure to have with us Inga Hamilton. Inga's a ResourceSmart Schools Facilitator working in the Grampians region of Victoria. She has a background in teaching and a lifelong interest in sustainability. Inga's passion lies in providing fun, interactive learning for students and staff on her favourite topic of waste and biodiversity.
That's me.
Welcome, Inga.
Thank you so much.
Looking forward to having a chat about all things education and sustainability. Two topics very close to both of your hearts. So before we get into that, I'm going to kick us off with a bit of a proud dad moment.
Yeah.
So I thought this poem would be a nice way to kick off this podcast. And I'm going to be in big trouble if I don't get it perfectly right. And the reason is that this is actually written by my daughter, Elizabeth Hatzimanolis. She was 9 at the time of writing this in Year 5. She goes to Essendon Grammar. And it was very well received from all of her colleagues and her peers and her teachers at school. So it's called Our Earth, and this is what Lizzie has to say about sustainability. When we make waste and nature dies, we must give it a second life. We have to nurture Mother Nature, keep the world clean so it's a wonder to be seen. If we don't love our earth, it won't love us back. We inspire others to be mothers to the planet. We need to be the planet's bees. Take just what we need. Stop the bleed. Give back. Make the world plentiful so we can all enjoy an earth that's beautiful.
That's so solid. It's amazing.
How do we get more Lizzies out
You're
there?
really only 9. That's beautiful and so insightful.
Yeah, we were all very taken back, and she did that all on her own and delivered it in front of not just the primary school, also the high school, which was pretty intimidating for her. But she's also working as part of a sustainability club in grade 5, and obviously very proud dad for me, given my involvement in the sector. But she did that on her own accord, and definitely the passion come through, and the fact that her and her sort of peers, I guess, in grade 5 are thinking that way. What do we do to keep inspiring this generation? It sounds like they're fairly inspired already, though.
Well, first and foremost, I think that poem typifies the intersection with you as a really proud environmental sort of role model as well, because that influence starts at home, and you sort of sow that seed at home, and then it leaches out and goes beyond the home, and then it feeds into the classroom, and having opportunities like that to speak to her peers and then older children as well really sort of just instills and reinforces that she's on the right path in terms of environmental sustainability. So that's incredible. So to foster, she should have my job, really. Quit school, come do my job now.
Not quite. Maybe in a few years we'll let it get
What
to
have
it.
we done with our lives?
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely.
That is sensational. And just so beautiful that she focused in on little things like circular economy and bees.
Yeah.
I
don't know where she got that one from.
But that's the thing, as we get older, things get more complicated, and children get it. It's not complicated. It's simple and it's effective. And
so you spend a lot of time doing this type of thing and talking to young children, and you both do in your space. But hard message to sell, or they typically click quicker than we do?
100%. Yeah, it's not hard to have students actually engage with sustainability. They get it straight away, and oftentimes I'll play games with them, and that fun part of the game, they're really into that, and then within about 10 minutes of playing the game, they're like, hang on a second, I get what you're doing here, right?
The learning via subterfuge, the covert learning and learning through play.
And they'll parrot back to me. They'll say, hang on, you're trying to tell us about this particular thing, aren't you? Yes, absolutely I am. And you get it. Yeah, we do that. Here's how we do it. Or we're not doing that. And then they'll turn to their teacher and say, why aren't we doing that, miss?
Yeah.
And
it's unreal. It's almost like they're learning and they don't even know that they are. And then all of a sudden they just absorb. I've seen that even in interacting with some of the kids that we've been able to reach through Tom's work, and some of the feedback I've had on some of the schools. And I wouldn't mind you just giving a bit of an overview, Tom, of the type of stuff that you've been doing. But some of the feedback I've had on the schools and people that have participated in them is just that interactive nature. It was like one of their most funnest incursions, as they call it now, when you go into their space that they have out of all the sessions that they do. And then they come out with all these fun facts around soil health. And I'm like, well, hey, where did you pick this up on? I was pretending to be a worm and Tom can do a good caterpillar and I was playing with soil.
Yeah.
Tell us.
Well, it's so funny because so Inga and I have known each other for many years. We sort of cross paths in lots of different varieties and different ways. But many years ago, I was a series facilitator. So I worked at the Series Environmental Park in Brunswick as an environmental educator. And so we used to have a lot of schools come to us for the excursion side of things. And there's that joy and novelty of leaving school to go to a completely different environment, completely different space. And trying to foster and channel that excitement around like coming to this brand new space that's got, 6 or 7 different worm farms and compost bins that you can explore, and a small scale urban farm. How do we emulate that back to school? So when I sort of finished up at Sirius, I was like, how can we harness that enthusiasm for, a site like Sirius and take it back to school? So it lends itself really well to sort of be quite playful and quite childish and sort of come down to their level of like, hey, we can be a bit silly with it and we can kind of dance and sort of be very kinesthetic in our learning, so moving our bodies a lot. And it's that novelty of doing this hands-on learning experience, but not within the confines of the classroom, of sort of doing it outside and going, okay, look, whilst you are not necessarily coming to a series-like space, we can bring, that environmental enthusiasm to your school. How do we do it? So I'm a visitor to your school. I'm coming in for a day. So, you are the subject matter experts. You have to work with me to kind of design a garden program or design a space that would fit your school that you would like to come and visit, or that you'd like others to come and visit as well. So having that buy-in, I think for students works really, really well. And then because they've had that buy-in in the design process and the testing and the facilitating, they're consolidating their learning, yes, but then they're taking ownership over it as well. And then you've got that learning really sticking.
I mean, you guys have got the real hands-on practical experience with this stuff, but generally, and I think this is quite true, and I'd like to say factual, that people absorb a lot more when it's in a positive environment with a positive mindset. No one wants to be, necessarily told, well, this is what you can and this is what you can't do, but this is why. Yeah. And then it just opens up. We see this in some of the education that we roll out when we're pitching to key stakeholders in the industry. It's not about, do's or don'ts. It's about the why. What's the purpose? Why do we need to live this way? Yeah. How have you sort of gone about delivering that message as to the why, and what's been your experience in hands-on, both in education and the type of programs that you roll out? Maybe you can give us a bit of an overview on what they actually look like. Yeah.
Well, ResourceSmart Schools is a really fun and interactive program, and it really gives students the opportunity to get their hands dirty, and in all different aspects, because we focus on biodiversity and water, waste and energy. So there's something for everyone. And at the same time, we have an interactive portal. So even though there might be teachers out there that are like, sustainability, the other word that I can't possibly broach that topic, we offer like a step-by-step guide to help teachers address something. And it might be something very simple, like switching all of your paper to double-sided printing, and that already saves so much. To something more complicated, like a biodiversity audit. And with that then comes that opportunity to leave the classroom, but implement everything that you've learnt. You're looking at maths, you're looking at English, you're looking at science, and you get to implement it practically, come back in and go, this is our habitat quality assessment score. We know how many native trees we've got here at school. And we now know why they're so important, because without habitat, we don't have native animals. If we don't have native animals, what happens to our environment as humans? And that's what I said before when I said kids get it. You just have to show them a little something like that, and they're like, oh, that's how I fit in. Got it. I'm going to protect this space.
And it sticks at such a young age with them as they progress through.
That's right.
In terms of the type of programs that you've both been involved on, how would you sort of describe the effectiveness or stickiness, as you will, post you've run the sessions? Is it something you need to go back and reinvigorate if you run it to a particular school as an initiative? Is it generally been quite successful in terms of people embodying it, or is it still a little bit hit and miss?
Yeah, I think speaking for ResourceSmart Schools, once schools see how easy it is to actually do, and it's not you don't have to go in hard. You can start off and do a little step at a time. Small acts, big impact.
Yeah, I love it.
And with that, I like to call it choose your own adventure. And once teachers realise, actually students can be part of this as well, and they can start their own eco team and they can be the driver, and they bring in the parents, and then you build this school community that cares for its space and everything in it. And it's finding your tribe almost. Yeah. So, yeah.
I think you and I are cut from the same cloth, because that's precisely my experiences, particularly with the Repurpose It education side of things. It's that demystifying sort of approach of like, yes, sustainability is a really broad concept, but we can break it down into, the different pillars, so waste, energy, water, biodiversity. So for Repurpose It in particular, like speaking about the programs that we do, it really sits in that waste side of things. So food waste, composting, organics recycling. But then also we sit on the other side. So when we continue on and extend with schools and extend with kindergartens, we extend by, obviously we've got a suite of landscaping materials. The extension is, if we want to increase the biodiversity within the site, there's ways and means that we can provide the landscaping material as well. And that landscaping material just so happened to be bananas from 18 weeks ago. So it's this full round circular moment of like, okay, if we implement the waste module, particularly from ResourceSmart Schools, if we start to explore the waste module, we are generating our own friable soil and compost that then feeds into the biodiversity. And so in our incursion program, we touch on precisely that without alluring initially to, hey, there's a full-blown ResourceSmart Schools module that you could explore. We set those foundations so that when we do come back, we can revisit.
I think that piece around the reach as well, Tom, like I know in some of the programs that you've rolled out specifically, where we've had a small donation of soil to go with it. So you've gone around a program as an incursion, we've donated some soil. I know that in at least a recent example here in Melbourne, there was some residual soil. We might have sent 5 cubic metres instead of 1 on that occasion. But what it led to was a planting day that now the parents were involved in, and this particular one, I had some family members that, as you know, but some of that planting day extended not just to the parents of the children, but to other parents. So, for example, my wife went to one. It was at my nephew's school because my sister was like, "Hey, can you come along? Incredible. We've got a planting day for young Freddie. Can you come and participate?" And I'm like, "Oh, how nice is that?" It's still going, and now it's bringing parents of the children and parents from a wider community, and everyone's getting involved, and it's all off that piece of work that it's going to stick with a whole bunch of audience now. Absolutely. Beyond just people in the classroom and taking it home. And
it also draws in, like, for example, in Ballarat, local government. Yeah. So for School Tree Planting Day, they donated native plants to schools, as did the Rotary clubs. So, everybody starts to come in when they notice, this is the passion, this is their why, and everybody gets in and actually contributes to that. It's just so wonderful and so positive. Why wouldn't you continue it?
It's a good question. I think it's a good way to end in terms of why. Why is it so important? We see the impact and we're in the space, but if we were to describe the importance of these programs and the why, what are the key reasons why this is important?
I think for me, it's that longer forecast around, if you sow those, say, the seeds of sustainability with the young cohorts, so early childhood, primary school, when they do sort of go through and navigate, vocational pathways or wherever they sort of choose to end up, tertiary studies or wherever it may be, having that sense of sustainability and that the choices they make impact the earth around them and the broader community, the broader environment, it's a really significant sort of opportunity for us as educators to sort of impart that knowledge that we are all actually intrinsically connected, and that our choices matter both at the home, school, work, wherever it may be. And then conversely, the other why for me is as a sort of a more global approach, very similar to kind of the small actions, big impact side of things. What we choose to do with our environment, we've only got one Earth and its finite resources, and we need to collectively work together to mitigate sort of that virgin extraction sort of process. So rather than a take, make, waste model, thinking about, okay, how can we actually reuse the existing material that's already been extracted out? So a couple of different pathways for me, and as for the why.
Yeah. For me, it's similar to Tom. It's that connection to the earth. If you learn that as a young person, you can take those skills with you for the rest of your life. And so no matter what happens, if you can grow something from a seed, you can nourish yourself, you can utilize whatever it is that you grow in whichever way you want, and you can teach others to do the same. And it's something that maybe we're stepping a little further away from as we become more digitized. But, you know, to have that opportunity in a country like this, where we have such a rich history and such a long history, you know, I think it would be crazy for us not to.
And I mean, I think it's I think they're both really amazing and beautiful reasons why. I think it's about investing in, you know, in the transition to a circular economy. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens over decades, and it's a long period of time. And planting the seeds, investing in early, so that we can get that reach, you know, and accountability for the next generation coming through. But this is very much a long-term investment, isn't it? Like, I think about the work that we do, and obviously sponsoring, you know, teams and business units like the work that Tom does, and our ambition to grow that out. You know, the commercial reality is that businesses like ours and others are engaged directly with local council authorities, and we typically have contractual arrangements that have different avenues there, that if there's high levels of contamination rates, that we can put contractual penalties in place, and our relationship from a pure commercial sense is between us and the councils. But the reality is, you know, our customers are much broader than that. Our customers are the local community and the people using, obviously, the waste service, and in the case of the bins, making sure they're putting the right content in there. And so taking a very long-term view and to say, well, if we want to have high impact for the next generation over the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, we need to get in very early. And not to say that we can't, you know, educate, and we run education campaigns broadly, as I'm sure you both do. We've spoken a bit here about sort of primary school education at the younger generation, but there's also a lot of work that we do and advocate at a different age group and demographic. But this is really about planting the seeds early, so that we can get the most amount of influence as we're transitioning to a circular economy, and they can take that home and impact their parents and their colleagues, and they expect more of our politicians in the next 20 or 30 years' time.
Yeah,
exactly.
Very long-term thinking, the type of work that we're describing here, and investing in our younger generation.
absolutely. It's forming those habits that, you know, in my generation, we perhaps didn't form. You know, we were the generation of plastic, and we really got used to that. And changing that habit is really hard. And so if we can teach these young people to form the right habits, amazing things will happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're fostering that connection, and then that understanding, and then what's the actual action? You've got all this foundational knowledge of why it's important, but the action is, you know, potentially it's pester power at home, or it's taking up a sustainability green team at school, or it's the posters, or it's just getting your friends on board. Well, what's that call to action? And I think particularly in the food waste space, it's just such a wonderful it's a wonderful opportunity for provocation, because we all eat as well. So we all have that direct influence just immediately, whether you care about sustainability initiatives or not. We all consume food, so we can have a think about the waste on the other end and how to reuse that as well. So it's just it's a great introduction to sustainable action because you go, okay, well, your apple core doesn't have to go in landfill. It could go into your in-vessel composting at school, like the worm farm tunnels or the compost bin, or if you've got chickens. Exactly that. And then you kind of go, okay, well, if I can do that step, then it's what's the next logical step? Okay, maybe we can look at the energy use, or we can look at water use at school. And it just, for me, food waste in particular is just such a great intro that then feeds into the waste modules for RSS as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And how do you tailor your programs when you're, even if we just stick to sort of primary and secondary school for a minute, because I've had an opportunity to present to a couple of grade sixes in the last couple of years. And then I followed that up with a 11 and 12 session at my former high school. And I've got to say that one was quite daunting because some of the questions I had back were quite targeted. What's your view on electronic vehicles? Because Australia's not yet on renewables. So are they really better for the environment or not? Oh, wow. Geez, I wasn't really as prepared for that as what I might have been. But with the amount of information that they get access to as early teens and young adults, people are super informed and very across what the impact is. And how do you tailor the programs when we're dealing with such a big group of obviously, I guess, age demographic here from early preschool all the way through to 11 and 12 and young adults?
So for me, to speak on the Repurpose It education side of things, we implement, because I'm a teacher by nature, a thing called backwards mapping. So if we've got what's the intended outcome that we want the students to sort of experience, what's that visceral experience that we want to have them have on site. So whether it's an understanding of the organics recycling process or the broader circular economy or how construction demolition kind of intersects on those touch points. So that's our objective, and then we work backwards from there. So what's the delivery method? Is it more we're going to book out the boardroom and do a stand and deliver kind of approach? Is it more a round table where they bring the questions and we do a bit of front loading? So they'll pre-prepare some questions and we'll have open dialogue and exchange? Or is it more they're coming out to sort of get the real, if and when you do come out to Epping, get the sights and the smells and kind of the odor of the site as well and get that experience. So really working closely and being quite open and transparent to the teachers that we're working with to go, what's the aim that you would like the students to experience, or the outcomes you'd like to have them experience, and then we work backwards from there. In terms
it's interesting, because even in the 11 and 12 example that I gave there, at the end of it, I had a couple of students come over and they were interested from a career sort of pathway perspective and saying, well, you worked at a big corporation, then you're sort of in private enterprise, you're leading this recycling business that's been really successful. Talk to me about that from a career perspective. How do I have a career in sustainability? Yeah. I've actually taken a family friend on as a bit of a mentee at the minute, and she's a young aspiring environmental scientist. And she sort of come to me recently and said, listen, I'm about to finish my environmental science degree. What are the pathways, in terms of where this industry is headed, and do you think it's a good industry to go and carve out a career in? Of course, I said, absolutely yes, and I'd love to encourage you and all your friends to come in. But I think there is a huge opportunity around untapping more of the circular economy in selling this is the future of the way the world will work, we all hope, and the next generation, and we hope expects it of all of us and our politicians included. But it's a really exciting space. And I think as part of our responsibility as we're educating is not just the importance, obviously, about why we need to be more purposeful around our efforts in sustainability, but also that it's going to present a whole heap of world of opportunity that we don't yet know exists today.
That's right. Yeah. We're definitely opening a door for young people because we are showing them that there are different ways to approach things. And that's certainly with ResourceSmart Schools, we try to tailor our interaction with schools to suit the school. Because as I mentioned before, there are schools that have had no interaction with sustainability whatsoever, so it's quite daunting. And then there are others, they've got the chook shed, they've got the veggie patch, they've got compost, they've got solar panels, they've got little notes around each light switch that says, save penguins, switch me off. And so it's finding what works best for each school. And one of the best ways to do that is to do an audit. So we really look at what's your baseline, where are you at, and what can we do to actually help you to achieve, your sustainability goal. And it will look different for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's true for every household as well.
If I could just add to that, because you said, and I think the language is really important around that, how can RSS help you at the school? And that resonates with me as well, because sustainability oftentimes is that optional kind of approach. There's no mandatory reporting necessarily, certainly in the early learning space there is, but for primary and secondary, unless you're sort of following that cross-curricular priority, or you're looking at VCE, environmental science, oftentimes sustainability gets parked by the wayside as it's too onerous of a task for teachers to take on. So for Resource Smart in particular, what strikes me as wonderful about that, it's that complementary, how can we work with you without overburdening the teaching staff as well, because particularly in Victoria, like education and the state of sort of the teacher burnout and things like that, by having Resource Smart sort of support schools rather than here's more work to do, I think that's really important just to flag. Sorry, I don't know if you're going to, but I think it's really important.
It is part of the curriculum now, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Schools don't know how to integrate it.
Yep.
There's a few other things that schools find challenging to integrate. And having somebody there to sort of support you on your journey, that's gold.
And I think this is a great example here around joint accountability and that. So you've got the Victorian government through the work that you're doing at SV, you've got industry like the work that you're doing for Repurpose It, and we hope that others continue to do this, which there is a lot of fantastic work being done in this space. I've had the opportunity to work at sort of tertiary education a little bit, Melbourne Polytechnic, a lot of the universities that we are involved in. And they're always looking out for others to come in and help, whether it's from industry, whether it's from government. If we just take it beyond the classroom now and just focus on that for a moment. So education beyond the classroom, how has that been delivered? What's the opportunity that exists there? Thom, you and I have spoken, would love to get one of your sessions in aged care and take this thing full circle from preschool right through to an aged care facility. We've had some inquiries already and we're looking forward to getting you out if we haven't already at one yet.
I'm not booked in necessarily with any of the Palisade aged care facilities, but I do have one coming up from a separate aged care facility, which is very exciting. To be honest, though, what's the behaviour change and model look like for learning outside the classroom? It's very similar. It's hands-on, it's tangible, it's at the pace of the attendees. It's breaking down broader concepts to sort of digestible and accessible bits of information. But for me, it really is that visceral, tangible, hey, we've got 5 cubic meters of soil at a community garden. While we're moving that soil into garden beds, let's actually have a conversation around what's the journey that led to this compost coming to your site. And that's come from your council FOGO bins, from the council partners that we work with. The activities remain very, very similar because and it's so funny, like one of the activities in particular, we do a newspaper seedling box, which I often do at the library after dark programs, and it's very hands-on. So we take a sheet of newspaper and turn it into a newspaper box. And I guarantee 9 times out of 10, every time we're folding it, or most of the times we're folding it, there's comments made about, this looks like a party hat. This is a party boat from my childhood. And I was like, yeah, that's the point. It's that connection to your childhood, and all these neural pathways are then opening up or reopening up again. So to be honest, that educational, environmental education and stewardship, it's the same. That approach is the same regardless of age. Yeah.
Finding a place where you can ask the question and feel comfortable asking the question. You know, as an adult, that can be difficult sometimes. You do feel judged. And in the sustainability space, that just doesn't happen. People are open. The door is open for everybody to step in and really to learn. And you will make mistakes. And that's okay. And because from that, you'll be able to share that learning with somebody else. I had to laugh so hard when you said that you made those paper boxes because I do that with schools. And what I find is the students, they just start doing it, and 2 people will just walk away and go, we'll do all of those. You guys do the dirt. But it's the teachers then I'll have that conversation with, and they'll be like, oh, Inga, tell me about, what does circular economy really look like for me in the classroom? And, and I'll talk about, for example, milk. and the way milk has changed, that we used to have milk delivered in glass bottles and now we have it in plastic. But slowly companies are bringing glass back. And what was your experience when you were younger? Share that with the class. And what are the comparisons? And, you know, when students hear that, they're like, oh, that's fascinating. A man came and delivered your milk?
Yeah. And it's and I think it just highlights we've also got a responsibility now as active participants in the industry to make sure that we get it right, so that when they become adults, if we just think about the example of the preschoolers and young primary schoolers, that the systems around there actually are enacted and the infrastructure is there to enable them to live sustainably. And when we talk about this a lot, even simple things like being able to have some consistency in which bins they need to dispose of, which products, not just at home, because we're getting better at that as a state, we're getting very good at it, to be perfectly frank, around the curbside. But out in an open environment, a bit different. My kids have been quite fortunate that we've done a fair bit of travel. And even in the time that we've been traveling with them as young children, back as 2018 to now, across different parts of Europe, for use that as an example, things like having organics bins, source separated bins, that I've seen more and more on the travels. Yeah, the local McDonald's in at least in Spain and Portugal and some places that I've visited recently, all have 3 or 4 bins at a McDonald's store, and we're not quite there yet. Hopefully we're getting closer to that, but having those systems around them that when they become adults, it's there and embedded. The onus is on us to make sure, because we put all the effort in now, but if they don't have those systems available to them when they're out in the world as adults, then we sort of lose what this opportunity is in investing in so young as we are.
And I think that comes back to that intersection between the partners and stakeholders that we all engage with. So there's a clear overlap between Repurpose It and RSS, so ResourceSmart Schools and Sustainability Victoria. But then you look beyond that of like you said, how do we get involved in public spaces, parks and recreation, the community wellbeing teams? Like, it's wonderful to have these council partnerships and these local government partnerships, but it's a universal, how do we tap into the other teams that we need to engage with as well? So I think by working closely with RSS and schools and kindergarten programs and demonstrating that there's a need for that engagement, and then hopefully sort of eases that sort of apprehension for other sort of government entities to want it, that might not have wanted to engage in the past, but they've seen like the inherent need for it to then.
It's fair to say they're going to have higher expectations than maybe generation like ours and ones before us will have on our politicians, on our councillors, around what they expect.
As well they should. Yeah. It's their future. And we need to do more to, set them up, as you said, with the systems that allow them to have a future themselves, so that when they get to our age, they're saying, okay, we're moving forward here. We understand that saying no to something before we buy it and thinking, do I already have it? Can I get it somewhere else? Can I borrow it? No, they are all feasible options rather than buying it and using it once.
So, you mentioned there around the generation of plastic. I came across something recently. I think it was a pledge by France by 2040 to fully phase out single-use plastic. And I think about, okay, well, that's 2040. What will the generation of 2050? They won't know plastic, hopefully. Yeah, that'll be the generation of what was plastic? That was that really hazardous material used for what? I could buy everything in a single wrapper. And it's just, I guess it's a wonderful way to think that the world might evolve over the next sort of, and it's not that far away, to be frank, in the next 15, 20 years, if we can get there, phase out single-use plastic. Imagine what the world would look like from a pollution perspective, what our oceans would look like. Part of the thing in being able to travel the way that we have is we've seen some amazing examples of best practice, and I've been to some countries that are considered, really at the end of sustainability. But I've also seen some other parts of the world that have had pristine environments horrendously damaged, and beautiful beaches full of litter, and it pains to be able to not to enjoy them the way that they were intended. But, as we sort of look to evolve in this space, and I'd love to be around that generation that sort of forgot plastic. as a good example.
Yeah.
Or that we're so exposed to separating at the feedstock point where there's 16 different containers under the sink, and that's just normal practice. Like that's a really exciting premise to explore. But I think you made a good point of you've seen the full environmental spectrum of environmental stewardship and advocacy in the broader space, and then pristine areas being completely degraded. I think it's important that we then don't give up and just kind of look at it like, oh well, if other parts of the world aren't doing it, why do I have to work so hard at separating my waste? Like that's counterintuitive and a real race to the bottom as well. Whereas, we've got in Australia, some really sound infrastructure, educational resources, opportunities to do the right thing. And as a nation, we've got the ways and means to do that. So it behooves us to actually use the material and equipment that we've got in place and the infrastructure that's in place, rather than looking over at our neighbours across the pond or wherever it may be and going, oh, well, they're not doing it, so I won't.
And look, I mean, without being too biased, probably the most beautiful pieces of land to be able in pristine environment to actually preserve. I don't think anyone could have a bigger reason than what we do here in Australia. Having the opportunity to travel our beautiful country, there's nothing like it. Yeah. And we need to do our absolute best to protect it, because some people don't realise how lucky we actually are, I think.
So I'm originally from Germany and emigrated out here with my parents when I was 6 years old. And my dad's an engineer, and he was shocked that in 1983, yes, that's how old I am, in 1983, there was only one bin. He couldn't understand how household bins weren't already divided up, because in Germany that had been happening for so long. And even now, that build-up has been slow, but he's like, Australia really can forge its own path in so many different ways. What's stopping us from doing that?
Yeah.
And I really think, and that's one of the reasons why I'm in the job that I'm in, because I grew up with somebody who was absolutely passionate about the earth. He was one of the first people to take on solar panels. This man does deep dives. And he really educated me in a way that it just became a habit for me. Did I overconsume in my 20s? Absolutely. But again, he taught me to live my life without judgment and to make mistakes and to learn from those and share that learning with others.
Yeah. Look, honestly, Inga, Thom, both of your passion is infectious. I have no doubt that the people that you interact with walk away the same way that I will after this session, feeling that and feeling like they can be doing a lot more and in a very positive way, leaving it saying, well, there's set a pretty high bar, and we're going to continue to set a high bar for the next generation, the one after that, because I'd love to be talking to the generation that don't know what plastic is, as opposed to coming from plastic fantastic. And I think you guys are doing everything in your power to get us there. So really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, George.
Love the session, and really appreciate you guys giving up your time so pleasantly.
Thank you.
Thanks guys.
George.